fellow music fans, welcome back to Psychology of Rock. If you're new here, my name's Nina, and by request, today we're going to be doing a lyrical deep dive into the song Sick by my favorite ladies in rock, The Warning. I can't say enough about this band, and as someone who grew up in the punk scene, I really appreciate the sound of the song and even the aesthetics of the video, which really feel like a fun throwback. So I'll be doing a line-by-line psychological analysis of the song, but I also want to talk about some of the symbolism that we see in the video because I think that adds even another layer. But as always, I have to give the disclaimer that this is only my own interpretation. I'm in no way trying to speak for the band, and there can, of course, be other interpretations. Also, I really haven't heard anything from the band about what the inspiration for this song was, other than the fact that they said that the idea for the title came from a crew member who always used that expression. So I'm simply going to be looking at the song objectively as a piece of literary work and see what the actual words allude to. Now, in the last video analysis that I did for Animosity, you guys had some great insights and ideas, so please know that I enjoy reading your comments and your personal interpretations. I think they really add to the conversation, so please don't hesitate to leave your thoughts down below. And with that being said, let's go ahead and dive right in. I have to start by saying that I've read some comments that although people love this song, some don't think that the lyrics are that deep, that it's just more of a fun and kind of straightforward rock song, but I strongly disagree. Not only do I think this song is thought-provoking and clever, in my humble opinion, it's a brilliant snapshot of the angst and struggles felt by many people right now, but especially Gen Z, who are widely reporting that they're experiencing a pervasive sense of meaninglessness and emptiness with good reason. They were brought up in a completely new world that is increasingly antisocial and artificial, with some people claiming that we're almost starting to erode human experience as we know it through technology and excessive consumption. It's like collectively the world decided that all the things that we know are linked to well-being and happiness, like community, relationships, being outdoors, and engaging in meaningful activities, are things that we no longer are going to prioritize or even care about. I think the very title of this song could be referencing a very unwell society and how living in this way is affecting people. I mean, more people struggle with mental health issues now than ever before. It's almost alarming. Now, I'm certainly not trying to characterize an entire generation in one way or trying to suggest that this is everyone in this generation's experience. However, the concern is worrisome enough that The Warning keep coming back to this theme and sounding the alarm. And I do think the song Sick does this in a really raw and personal way, even though I definitely don't see the song as being autobiographical or reflecting their own experiences. I could be wrong, but I see it more as a cautionary tale. I also see it as a giant expression of the very real nihilistic anxieties that many Gen Zers are wrestling with. Now, if you're not familiar with the philosophy of nihilism, the basic idea is the rejection of the belief that life and human existence has any kind of inherent meaning or value. And embracing this viewpoint can, of course, have a lot of emotional and psychological implications, and I think the song very strongly flirts with this idea. So let's go ahead and walk through the song line by line, and I'll also point out some of the symbolism that I noticed in the video as we go. So the song starts out with the word sick, which of course has a double meaning. It can either be positive or negative. And I love how the song is describing this really concerning perspective, yet the word sick is shouted enthusiastically like the word is happy. I think it's very effective irony. The verse starts with, "Help me now cause I only do bass," where I think the protagonist is asking for someone to save her from herself or whatever she's going through. I also think it's kind of interesting that she chose to use the word debase because it's not really that common of a word, and it's even more impressive given that English is not even their first language. By the way, I am not sure if the lyrics for this song were written by Pau or Dany. I am leaning towards Pau this time, but I was wrong last time, so let me know in the comments. Now, the word debase can have a few connotations, but I think the one that works best for this song implies that she's deriving pleasure or excitement from something negative or destructive because she finds it more stimulating than the perceived dullness of everyday life. This would align with her later line, bleeding just to feel alive, so I think that makes sense. She then says, "When I see the problem staring straight at my face." Now, the problem in the song is never directly specified, so she could be talking about societal issues, her personal struggles, or even the existential void itself, but she goes on to say that she wants to kiss it, lick it, and make it her own. I think this is kind of a playful way of her saying that she's choosing to embrace the problem instead of trying to resolve it, almost like it's her coping mechanism for trying to deal with everything. Now the next line is, "Wanna taint the color till it's faded and gone." To me, this suggests a desire to distort reality, or at least to change her perception of the situation so it's a little bit less painful. Next up, we have the pre-chorus, which starts with, "Bleeding just to feel alive." Now, I definitely don't think this line is literal. I think it metaphorically represents engaging in risky or harmful behaviors. In other words, the protagonist might be seeking extreme experiences, dangerous relationships, or self-destructive habits as a way to try to escape the emptiness she feels. She wants to feel something, even if it's negative. The video also shows her engaging in these types of extreme experiences, like riding on motorcycles and punching each other and flying in the air after Ali flicks her off her hand. So I think it kind of represents her becoming a thrill seeker in order to try to feel more alive. The next line is, "I'm rotting in my place," showing that she's feeling stuck and stagnant and unable to progress or find purpose. I also think this line may have been the inspiration for the fly in the video, because flies are synonymous with rotting and decay, and it could be a clever metaphor. Although I also think the fly could symbolize a lot of other things, from negativity or a feeling of constantly being watched, or even critical comments from other people. So I think it could go in a few directions, and I'd actually love to hear your thoughts on that, so let me know in the comments. But either way, I think the fly works well with the word rotting, which she says multiple times in the song, and I think it's very intentional and empowering that they end up swatting the fly towards the end. I think that is also sending a message. Now the next line is, "Life is nothing more than passing time," which again just shows her cynical view that life is meaningless and devoid of inherent value, nodding back to the theme of nihilism. So this whole section really shows how desperate her situation is. But then we get to the chorus, which starts with, "Give me violence." This goes back to the idea that she's seeking out mayhem and extreme experiences as stimulation, possibly to try to jolt herself out of apathy. I think it's genius in the video when Pau is dancing happily and posing in front of hearts during these lines in the song, because it's just this perfect poetic contrast. I think it's designed to show how desensitized the protagonist is, like the idea of violence and mayhem is something she's completely indifferent about, to the point where it doesn't faze her in the least. She then says, "Kill the silence," which I think hints at the quiet desperation that's often associated with Gen Z narratives. They're always stereotyped as being glued to their phones and lacking real-world connections, and I think we see this represented in the video when they're just kind of yelling at each other through their phones instead of talking face-to-face. To me, the phrase "kill the silence" symbolizes a desire for deeper and more meaningful interactions beyond the superficiality of social media and digital distractions, and the need to break free from the isolation of living online and actually engage in genuine human connection and real-world experiences, no matter what the price is for that. So I don't see the line really being about escaping a silence that is peaceful. I think it's more about destroying the deafening emptiness, even if it means creating chaos. Then we get to the lines, "Till it makes me feel, till it makes me feel, till it makes me feel sick." And I love that she says it twice without the word sick, because it's a very strong statement, showing that she's craving any intense emotion, even negative ones, as a substitute for the emptiness. She just wants to feel something. But then she adds sick to the last line, showing that her desired feeling becomes twisted and self-destructive, highlighting her internal conflict. Moving on to the next verse, she says, "I want to make mistakes and live in regret." I think this line is pretty literal, again showing her self-sabotaging desire to engage in self-destructive behavior because she no longer cares what the consequences are, because she's already decided that nothing really matters. She then says, "Don't want to give, just take, get out of my head," which to me is kind of an expression of both entitlement and escapism, showing her desire for immediate gratification and maybe even an attempt to avoid deeper reflection. The next line is, "And if I break it, fake it, don't care what comes next," which I think is a nice continuation of the line before, showing that she's putting on a facade of indifference to mask her vulnerability by saying she doesn't fear any future consequences, that she's just completely apathetic, which again is something that Gen Z gets accused of. The last line of the verse is, "If there's a price to pay, I'll deal with it when I'm dead," which I think is a clever and nihilistic line, which again shows her reckless disregard for long-term consequences. The song then goes back to the pre-chorus, but instead of saying the same thing verbatim, she actually switches out the first line to "breathing just to live a lie," which I also think is very clever. The word breathing signifies the act of simply existing, while the phrase living a lie suggests that this existence is based on false beliefs or societal expectations. So it gives the sense that she's going through the motions without finding true meaning or fulfillment. It then goes on to finish the pre-chorus as usual, as well as the chorus, but this time the chorus has a few extra lines. The first is "Leave me ruined," where she's expressing that she just wants to be left in an emotionally broken state and she doesn't care what happens to her. So she's saying don't bother to intervene, that she's fine with the destruction. She then says, "Show me that I'm human." Now, this line could have a few meanings, but I think she's saying that she wants to experience life again, even the terrible parts of the human experience. That maybe it would wake her up from the isolation or from this virtual reality existence and remind her what life was like before she felt this way. This is the point in the video where they flash Pau's almost alien-looking eyes or feline-looking eyes, hinting at the fact that she isn't really human, or at least she doesn't feel human anymore, or she's lost connection with who she used to be. I think it's very effective animation. Now, the only other lines that aren't a repeat in the song are "I'm rotting in place, I'm begging you," which again highlights her despair and stagnation. She feels like she's slowly decaying, both mentally and metaphorically, with no escape in sight. The begging is her pleading for this misery to end, either to someone specific or to society or maybe even to herself. It shows her desire to change, which circles back to the beginning of the song where she first asks for help. I really feel like this is just such a deep song with brilliant social commentary, merely disguised as a fun rock song. There are so many layers here, and I never cease to be amazed by the warning. They continue to impress me. So those are my thoughts on Sick, but as I said earlier, I would love to hear yours, so please leave a comment down below. As always, I truly hope that you enjoyed today's analysis. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I will see you next week.